So I don't work for the Irving Group, I don't represent the Irving Group, and I don't report to the Irving Group. I'm here as an independent professor from the University of Moncton who works in the energy sector and sustainable development in general. Another word of caution is I learned one Saturday morning reading the paper that I had political ambition. So it was very... Somebody told me sometime, one day said, if people think you have political ambition, take this as something positive, because it means they have confidence in you. So, and he said, shut the up. But I don't have political ambition. I'm here as a professor and plan to be a professor for a long time. So I'll be talking about the sale of NV Power. It's always a challenge when we try to structure a presentation. And in this case, I think up until now there has been way too much numbers just pitched out without context, and some not necessarily accurate, and some projections to infinity, whatever. So I'll try to minimize the usage of number. But I'll try to tell you a story in 4 stages. One is a little bit talking about the process. Then I think we need to talk about MOU 1, Deal 1, the deal of October, to bring us to Deal 2, and I'll close with a few slides on the Gagnon panel, the Gagnon review. So, starting in the election platform of the New Brunswick Liberal Party, the Charter of Change of 2006, the energy section of that platform was very precise on numerous points. One of them, and all of this text is from the platform. The first line is, the people of New Brunswick are the shareholders of NV Power. I could stop right here my presentation. That line says everything. And it's what they promised to the population of New Brunswick in terms of what they would do. And essentially I've listed 4 elements here, but there's a whole list of elements that have not been done also, but just these ones related to this deal of NV Power here. Essentially, they promised that they would establish a long-term energy plan for NV Power with clear strategic directions and objectives. It's well known now that we don't have a plan, we don't have a roadmap, we don't have a vision for the energy sector here in New Brunswick. And they also promised to develop a clear, long-term strategic plan to increase New Brunswick's generation capacity. Why generation capacity? Because there's projection that it's a growth sector in the world, generation capacity. It's the most profitable division of NV Power right now, the division that generates electricity. They also promised to maintain NV Power as a publicly owned utility that will serve all New Brunswickers equally. And they will pursue a maritime energy accord between the 3 maritime provinces. So essentially have a maritime integration in the energy sector. So that's what they promised, that's what they got elected on, amongst many other things, of course. But in the energy sector, those were key promises that were made by the government. Now, prior to the election of 2006, there was 3 pillars in the platform of the Liberal Party of New Brunswick. Essentially, it was education, economy, and energy. Then came the election, got elected in 2006, and not long after the election, they came out with a concept that I feel was a great concept: self-sufficiency. The self-sufficiency agenda. Essentially an agenda that will bring this province to economic self-sufficiency, essentially giving more money to Ottawa than what Ottawa is sending back through transfer payments. In terms of society, we say in French, un projet de société. A society projects, hope, something to work for, a collective project. Long-term, 20 years. When they announced the self-sufficiency agenda, I said to myself, this government has just secured to be re-elected in 4 years and in 8 years from now. 3 times, this is a 3-mandate government with this line only, the self-sufficiency agenda. Because by the time we realize if we're going to reach self-sufficiency or not, it's going to take at least 12 years. So all they need to do was to put into place some mechanisms, some projects, try to change things to show us that we're working towards self-sufficiency. Then they came out and said, well, this self-sufficiency agenda or concept, we'll reach it through this energy hub concept. New Brunswick will be not only an energy hub for the Maritimes, for Canada, but for the whole eastern North American seaboard. And that's what's going to make us attain self-sufficiency. And for the last 3 years, this government has been hammering that message of self-sufficiency, energy hub, self-sufficiency, energy hub. So then came October 29. One morning, the Premier called a news conference. Nobody knew. And they had made some secret negotiations with Hydro-Québec to sell ND Power. About a week, 10 days before, there was rumors that started to come out that something was happening at ND Power. Myself and many others, organizations like the Conseil économique du Nouveau-Brunswick, the New Brunswick Economic Council, started to come out and say, oh, looking at ND Power, shouldn't we have an energy policy first? Shouldn't we have an energy plan first? So we started to push out this concept before October 29. But we were not successful because the news conference was called, as we know, negotiations in secret, no consultation with the population of New Brunswick. And at that press conference, the Premier of New Brunswick, the Premier of Quebec, and the senior management of ND Power were there to announce that the government of New Brunswick had decided to sell ND Power. I say in summary that at that news conference and afterwards for the days that followed that news conference, there was what I call a nice story put out by the government. Okay? Eliminating debt, lower rates, I'll come back to that. But you've heard all of those comments. But most importantly, they published 3 documents. One was the press release, which is a typical press release of government. There was a summary document that explained the deal. It was a 1-page and a 3/4 document, so almost 2-page document. It was the broad line of the deal. And there was the MOU itself, the Memorandum of Understanding, 15-page document that gave the framework of the deal. Essentially, what was the obligations, the responsibilities, the risks, the liabilities, etc., both for Hydro-Québec and ND Power. So, what was in Deal 1? Well, essentially, the messages from the press release and what was coming out of the government for the Deal 1 was that homeowners will see rates much lower than under the status quo. This is textual from the press release of the government. Much lower rates. We, New Brunswick, will share Quebec's competitive industrial rates, and this is undeniable. Industrial rates will be lower, and we will eliminate, will bring the elimination of ND Power's massive debt. Will help us, New Brunswick, attain self-sufficiency. And it was branded as the best deal possible with Hydro-Québec when the government came out with that deal. So let's look at a few numbers. And I said that I would not use a lot of numbers, but here I go. Don't believe a professor. It's going to be fun when the professor tries to stop me in a few minutes from now. No, seriously. A few numbers. These are numbers related to debt. ND Power and Hydro-Québec. So essentially, we've got a 10 times difference between the population of New Brunswick and the population of Quebec. So it's normal that we see some 10 times difference in various numbers. So essentially, we have a generation capacity of roughly 4,000 megawatt. Hydro-Québec, 36,000 megawatt of installed capacity. We've got 376,000 clients, almost 400,000 clients. Hydro-Québec has almost 4 million clients. Annual revenues, but most importantly, the debt of ND Power, $4.7 million, which is the debt of 2007-08, plus the refurbishment cost of Point de Pro. It's the debt that's being used by the government, $4.7 billion. The debt of Hydro-Québec is $36.4 billion. With this transaction of Deal 1, Hydro-Québec would have paid $800 million cash, would have debt financed $4 billion. The debt of Hydro-Québec would have been $40 billion. Now, if you bring this debt per capita, the debt per capita of ND Power is $6,280, and the debt per capita with the transaction 1 of Hydro-Québec is $5,200. Another way to look at debt is what's the ratio of debt compared to the annual revenues. Well, essentially, ND Power would need 2.8 years of annual revenues to pay down its debt. Hydro-Québec, with this sale, would need 3.2 years of annual revenues, total of Hydro-Québec, not only this deal here, total of Hydro-Québec to pay down its debt. Essentially, the debt of ND Power is not unreasonable,